pleasure for me to run this session, thanks to Amec. I'm going to introduce the speakers, including myself. I will start with myself because my family name starts with an A, so I always speak in the first place since I was a child. So my name is Ángel Alloza, Alloza, and I am in charge of a non-profit think tank created by 20 of the major Spanish corporations. We started working together 16 years ago. We help each other. We have direct competitors with us, and what we want to do is to advance in essentially the way we measure and we manage the intangible side of the value creation. And by intangible, I mean communications, reputation, CSR, the way we manage people. And because of that, when we discover the existence of Amec, we were committed to set up an alliance with them because from my client viewpoint, it is crucial to have and to help everybody, both the suppliers and the clients, to have a kind of standard framework to planify, to do the strategic planning of communications as well as the evaluation. So we discovered the Amec communication framework, and what we would like to do is to give more visibility to those standards, to the organization itself, both in Spain and in Latin America. And that's why I'm very proud to have here a fantastic team of people who are going, of professionals who are going to present for the first time a research conducted in Latin America about the specific topic of measurement. Because there has been in the past, in the last 3 years, a very interesting Latin American research conducted by EUPRERA with the help of DIRCOM, the National Spanish Association of Communication Directors. And this is the Latin American Monitor, and it covers essentially the role of communications. So we have that background and this new research specifically focusing on measurement. So the presentation of the main results will be in charge of Carlos Alfredo Diaz. He is the general manager and member of the board of GlobalNews Group, with offices in 10 Latin American countries, and he's also he represents one of the companies who's pushing the Amec network in Latin America. Then, after his presentation, we'll have the pleasure to hear from Carlos Diaz. Carlos Diaz is the founder and CEO of Buho.
Carlos Villa.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I have here. Sorry, 2 Carlos and 1 mistake. Sorry, Carlos Villa is the founder and CEO of Buho, a communication measurement and evaluation company serving global customers in the region from their central offices in Colombia. And he is a vice chair of the Latin American Amec chapter. And then we have Alejandro, no mistake, Alejandro Moreno. He is a system engineer from Colombia. He's the chief marketing officer of Acceso in Spain. And before that, he opened the Acceso office in Colombia, where he was involved as the country manager for 3 years. So let's start with the presentation of the results. Carlos Alfredo Diaz.
So as Ángel said, this was a first for Amec. Now, Amec as an association gave us a lot of responsibility last year by creating a Latin American chapter. The objective of the chapter was to understand our region and to promote both Amec and our good practices in the region. This year, thanks to the help of corporate excellence, we've been able to do something that we had never gotten in Latin America, which was to survey what our clients, our companies, and what agencies thought about measurement, how they understood it, what they thought about it. Now, a first look at the report and what we saw is that the majority of respondents, they thought comms measurement was either critical or very important. The majority also felt they personally needed to pay more attention to the area of comms measurement. So these are all very good news. Only a little over a quarter of the respondents felt that measurement was essential to PR and comms. Now, to be honest, even though only a little over a quarter felt it was essential, only 15% said it wasn't essential. And we're going to go back to that. What did we learn about the report? Well, the first thing is, when saying it's not essential, when asked why it wasn't essential, half of them blamed it on the lack of standards. They all said, it can't be essential, there are no standards. We don't know any. That, for us, was not only a great opportunity, and business-wise, but a great Amec opportunity. And yes, I say Amec, not Amec. There's been a lot of debate over the years, but I say Amec still. It's an opportunity for Amec to bring forward not only the standards, but the understanding of how those standards were made and why. Oh. Okay. I'm seeing differently on there than there.
Oh, yes?
I just realized. My fault. So, who's moving my slides?
No.
Now it's okay.
Yeah, now they're synced. Okay, guys? Anyways, as I was saying, so we asked people, many of them said it was important, so we asked them, how are you measuring? The thing is, 91% of them said, we measure output, outtakes, and outcomes, which sounds awesome. We found it as a great answer. Now, the question we're taking from this is that, one, the fact that we're not there and corporate excellence doesn't have the footprint yet, and Amec is not there to tell them what those three things really mean, how they're truly supposed to be measured. Going back to what we said before, if there are no standards, anyone can call almost anything an outcome. The second thing we see is, if they're talking about outcomes, are they correlating them to the business strategy, or are they not? That's an opportunity that we've found that we're going to use as a chapter in the near future. Then we talked about, we wanted to know whether they were, what they thought the region considered and how they compared to the rest of the world. More than half thought that measurement was being taken less seriously in Latam than overseas. The lower someone had a position in a company, the higher it was likely that they said yes. Meaning, CEOs thought that in the other regions, Latam measurement was taken as seriously as in Latam. But the people who actually read the measurement, who compile it, who end up working with us to understand it, most of them said no one takes it seriously. Everyone else outside of Latam, they take it really seriously. We don't. So that takes us back to the CEOs. More than 40% of CEOs who responded to our survey said they are fully up to date with the latest measurement tools and methodologies. Now we're talking of a group that talked about before not being standards and not knowing them, and still they say they're up to date. And we talked a minute before about more than half of them think, Oh, yeah. More than half of them think that they're being taken less seriously, measurement is being taken less seriously in the region than overseas. And yet, they consider themselves to be fully up to date. What we take from this is that actually, out of the lack of presence from Amec and other bodies, and of true research in the region, CEOs think they know all they have to know. They're overestimating what they know about measurement and the importance of measurement for the and to the C-suite. Now, only 18% of the respondents said they knew about Amec. Less even knew about the Barcelona principles. But 40% of the CEOs said they were up to date. Again, that means two things. One, the CEOs are clearly not up to date, and the people who were saying they were up to date had been misled by the lack of presence of Amec. So we have a responsibility now to go back to these people, to go back to the region, and tell them, we are going to be there. Tell them we need to outreach more. What this research has shown us is that we need to educate much more in Latin America. We clearly need to. People are both overestimating their knowledge of measurement and underestimating the lack of measurement in Latin America. This is clear from the research we got. And this research has been a first that we will do many more times in the future, because now has become the roadmap that we will use to further the chapter in the region and to help Amec have the presence it should have.
Taking the opportunity that we have in the room, the managing director of the Spanish Association of Corporate Communication Directors, Sebastián Cebrián, it's about joining forces, because their association, which is very large, more than 1,000 members, has had a very good idea, and they launched a foundation called Fundacom. And Fundacom is a non-profit foundation where the trustees are the chairman of the National Association of Communication Directors in different countries in Latin America. So Fundacom is helping this idea of educating and training, thanks to also an alliance with us and with the Universidad de Navarra, and we are launching a training program in different countries, in the main markets in Latin America. So this idea of joining forces means that you have the help of DIRCOM, Fundacom, Corporate Excellence, with the same objective. Saying that, I would like now to move to some questions. And I would like to start with Carlos Alfredo.
Okay.
Because you presented the results of the study. It is a summary, but there is a full report. So
yes.
I've read the full report, and it was interesting to see that when asking the respondents about their priorities for the future, they mention 3, which is interesting. One of them, let me see, because I don't have them in mind.
I have them here. Yeah.
Yes.
My fault.
I will pass on to you.
I forgot to give it back.
1 second. Here they are. Priorities. It has to do with digital evolution and social media, the use of big data, algorithm for communication, and the third one is managing corporate reputation. What do you think about these priorities?
Well, I think first about the results, that we were positively surprised by the level of prioritization for investment in innovation that we saw. The fact that they find managing corporate reputation a priority for investment in innovation is not only very forward-looking, but it's very positive for the region. It means that they're thinking forward into what we're trying to do. It means that these companies, they want to measure appropriately. They just don't know how. They want to show the value for what they do, and they want to do it right. They want to have something that they can show to the C-suite, and that the C-suite can say, okay, I understand you. Okay, there's actionable insight here, and okay, this research will help me understand how to act better in the future and how to act in the present to improve the reputation my company has right now. The fact that they put it so high up is very encouraging.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
And I will ask you, don't worry, it will be your turn. I'm going to ask only one question for each of the speakers. Carlos Villa, you are in charge of you are the vice chairman of Amec for the region, and having seen the results of this study, what are the opportunities that you see both for the clients and for the suppliers in the region?
Thank you, Ángel. First of all, I want to take a couple of seconds to thank everybody in the audience to be here. There is another very important global event that is starting in this moment. It's the Russia World Cup. It's the first inauguration game, so it's soccer or our conference. So I personally really appreciate all of you being here.
I thought it was just that they didn't care about it. Now we have a better excuse.
I don't know.
So we will blame soccer. We all hate it anyways.
Yeah, it's Russia, Saudi Arabia, but anyway, it's the World Cup, so thank you. Now, getting into the answers. When we were discussing the results with the Buho team, that is also a company here, this panel, we came to one phrase that I think it summarizes the results of the survey. And it was something like this, that in Latin America, we're starting to see and visualize the journey of measurement and evaluation. But we has not begun to travel it in a complete way yet. That's I think it's the main conclusion of what we see. And now getting specifically to your question, finally, Ángel, we see opportunities, both, of course, for Amec and both for our companies. As you know, the three of us, we are competitors in the media and evaluation business in Latin America. But we think it's great to work together, especially in one thing. And you mentioned it, Carlos, and it was something very clear to the whole survey, and it's education. I think that we all need to educate in the necessity of media evaluations and analysis in Latin America. Is something that it didn't exist until a few years ago, and I think it's been the successful work of our three companies that make that already is not something extremely new, but still we need a lot of education to do that. So I think that's the big opportunity. And obviously, when we're talking about education to our customers, having the support and having all the infrastructure and the knowledge that Amec has, then it's absolutely crucial for that exercise. Personally, when we're trying to sell our services down there in Latin America, we see that big companies whose headquarters are based both in Europe or in the States, and they have a permanent presence in Latin America, the Latin American headquarters, they need to respond to some necessities of the global headquarters. That is, they need to visualize, they need to analyze, they need to measure. So I think it's a great opportunity for us is to have those companies in our minds, because they all have presence in the rest of the countries. And if we start with the Latin American headquarters, it's a great opportunity to educate and to transmit the necessity and how to measure to the rest of the country. So I see a very clear opportunity in there, working in education. And like Paloma Escudero was telling us yesterday in the conference of UNICEF, she was talking about the local strategies. That's basically we need to take care of some global objectives, but adapt them to the local market. So I think through the local headquarters in Latin America, it's a great opportunity to be able to do that. Then I want to insist again, education. I think that Amec University and the Amec studies that they provide, it's a great opportunity. There's a lot of academic people in our companies, that can help with that process with the support of Amec, and once again, in relation with our customers and accompanying our customers to learn how measurement needs to be done. Okay, and I think the framework, the Amec framework, that has been a discussion issue through all the talks during this summit. It's a great opportunity because the framework, it's a language that everybody knows and everybody understands. So when we sit down with a customer, we talk to them about the framework, we explain them, it's something they instantly understand, it's something that is clear for them, and in one or another way, they have tried to do something similar, and then talking about the measurement and evaluation of that framework, or as a part of that framework, has simplified for us, for them to understand why it's measurement and evaluation necessary. So I think that's all the opportunities for our companies and both for Amec.
Thank you, Carlos. And Alejandro, based on your experience, is it something which makes sense or not to think about providing measurement services in a silo way to the Chief Communication Officer and to the Chief Marketing Officer? What do you think about that? An easy question.
Yeah, of course, it doesn't make sense. The thing is, that's how it's happening right now. And I think it's one of three main problems companies have right now. Because if you only measure outputs, okay, you can have these measures separated. But when you are measuring outcomes, how can you say that the outcome you get is for your work? If you measure outcomes in a silos way, you will get wrong insights. You will get wrong data. You will get wrong conclusions. So you will get wrong strategies. Maybe you won't be able to figure it out in a first impressions, but big companies are right now suffering about this. This is one of the examples we saw today with CaixaBank. When CaixaBank thought it could be a good idea to measure both touch points in the marketing and the communication areas, they found out that their outcomes were a response of both kind of outputs, you know? So, and in the context of the study, thank you very much for the study. I would love to have it when I was in Colombia 5 years ago, because it gives you a context of your market that we didn't have. And it's funny because even when Acceso has a communication soul, in Latin America we have a marketing soul. So in that context, and in the context of the study, we are beginning to feel that companies are needing that companies like us tell them that they have to make this kind of measures. But it is not going to be an easy job.
Mm-hmm. But the future is there. It will come.
The future is there, of course.
At least in my opinion.
Yes, I think to add to what Alejandro just said, it's important to understand that by selling to both, by joining understanding that the customer is one, we can much better prove correlation, causation, and not just correlation. And the problem in our business is we're trying to prove causation constantly, but sometimes that causation cannot be proven if we don't do it at ceteris paribus, and to do that, we need the other outputs and data sets.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and those very important information is not only from the outputs to the outcomes. You have something in the middle, the outtakes, which is the perceptions of the different audiences. So I fully agree with you. if you want to continue on with the silo vision and separating the kind of research that both departments need, it would be only with a view, a very traditional and old view of measuring only the output. Okay.
The good part about what Alejandro said regarding, and then we can go to the questions. We're going really fast, so we're good with time. That's good. Ángel, you're doing a great job. Barry would be glad if he wasn't watching the World Cup. The good thing is, on the research, to add to what Alejandro said, we saw and we have hard data that proves our perception, that is, most of the budget, even in Latin America, is in marketing. Most of it, by far, is in marketing. We ask people, just to be sure of something that we all perceive, whether their companies had more budget in marketing or in PR. Overwhelmingly, it is in marketing.
And not only that, but one of the results, and that's something that during these last 4 years we have seen constantly in Amec, and it's basically was the answer to a question that they say, what's of the total amount of budget that you have for your PR, for your communication, how much of that budget is dedicated to measurement and analysis? And the rough figure is around 10%. But I was in one of the conferences this morning, that same data, that same amount spent for the marketing resources is 22%. So it's not only the marketing budget is much bigger, but inside that budget, the budget that they dedicate to research and data insights, it's almost double than in the PR. So I think there's a lot to do there, and of course a lot to try to work together with the marketing areas and the PR areas in our region.
Yeah, and it reinforces, again, the education part. Why does marketing spend much more on research? Because they understand that research is the only way to scientifically prove and to reliably prove the causation on a result. And if you want to show and prove your value, which is what we all want, we want to prove our values, to generate insights, and to work better in the future. And if you want to do that, we need causal results. And to get to those causal results, we need reliable research. But for them to understand that, reliable research can exist, they need to be educated, and that's our job. We have to go there, we have to explain that there are standards, and they can measure that.
I fully agree with you. In fact, this week, Deloitte has published the results of the study about the profile of the chief marketing officer of the future. And they ask chief marketing officers all over the world, and one of the questions is, how do you perceive your most important strength as a marketing director? Guess what? Measurement capabilities, measurement knowledge. So,
I want to add something for what you're saying. I think it's only okay? It's only an idea. But marketing has measured outcomes since the beginning. Since 40 years ago when they started, or 60 years ago. And communication, we are only getting to the outcomes right now. So if you don't measure outcomes and you cannot see if you are giving something to the company or receiving something from your outputs, you won't be able to increase your research budget. I think that's a very big difference between marketing and communication budgets, research, that can explain the difference in their budgets.
Of course, and of course we all know, and this is especially prevalent in Latin America, in my opinion, that for marketing to measure outcomes is mostly necessary for their work, but it's also much more transparent. The causation is much more easily measured than in comms, where you deal with many more intangible assets. And that I think is the reason why in the beginning marketing could measure or had to measure, and we didn't. But nowadays, technology has come to the point, and the scientific, by bibliography has come to the point where we can measure reliably with scientific rigor and say, this is causated by this work, or has a certain likelihood of being causated.
Yes, my takeaway from this conversation from the point of view of clients is that we have to invest much more in, I'm not going to say market research, I'm going to say business intelligence. And business intelligence has to provide the insights which has to be useful both for communications as well as marketing. And we have in the back, I see, two fantastic representatives of business intelligence at one of the company who presented yesterday, Cepsa. Hello. Well, now it's your turn. We have plenty of time, so.
Are there any questions?
Yes. You want to make? Yes. Yes.
She's coming.
Just raise your hands and.
Okay, just for the panel, which kind of actions are you planning to do to promote education on best practices on evaluation?
Well, there's two sides. Someone else wants to answer because he works for me, so it's not fair that. Well, as you know, the Amec chapter is working heavily right now in planning, and now that we can work together with people like Corporate Excellence, we're planning on two sides. First, of course, we're trying to raise awareness through using Measurement Month and planning a series of lectures and small lectures all over the region. With the help of Ángel and his team at Corporate Excellence, we also want to take advantage of all of the materials they already have gathered and all of their planned knowledge expansion, let's call it, in Latin America, so that we can work together and take advantage of the boots on the ground all of our companies have to go not as salespeople, but as people who want to outreach to our clients, and to do strong events during Measurement Month, and then a series of lectures all year round.
Yes, obviously, as a member of Amec and as the vice chair of our chapter, then completely, we're going to work together with Carlos and the effort that he is leading in the region through Amec. And we have created not only the lectures, but we have created some practical events and practical panels where we have put together in the same panel a customer, their PR agency, and the measurement agency doing the coordination of the debate of the panel. And that has been really, really incredible because you have seen really live experiences of why measurement is important, or why the PR agency needs their strategy to be measured. And so the people over there get not only the necessity or the theory of why measurement is important, but they see it in specific real cases. And that has been real successful for us, and it's something that we want to continue doing, that, for people to understand how the measurement can improve their businesses.
We also, with the help of GlobalNews and the team you lead, Aldo, we've also recently translated all of the Amec College course materials to Spanish, and now are working on Portuguese, because Latin America is not only all Spanish, and we always forget, but the big chunk is Portuguese. But we've also been working for the past few months in translating. It's over 700 hours of translation, so that we can soon launch the courses in Spanish. One of the main reasons, and you see this in other association bodies, in other industries, you see the parallel. One of the main reasons I believe we don't have a well-educated audience in Latam is the language barrier. I believe that once the materials are in Spanish, once the materials you guys have here in Spain, because that's what you've been doing for the past 10 years,
Yes.
Doing things in Spanish because there were none, and once your materials and the Amec College course can get to the people who need it in Latam, people will start enlightening themselves.
Yes, and from Corporate Excellence Center for Reputation Leadership, in a very practical way, we do have a web page. You can access that web page, sign up for the newsletter, and a part of Knowledge Center is free access, which means that we have about 6,500 companies downloading contents from Latin America, from that side, from the free side. And I invite you to join these 6,000 people who are already doing this. And in a more formalized way, I repeat that we have a very powerful agreement with Fundacom and the Universidad de Navarra in advancing in this idea of educating and bringing opportunities to Latin America. In addition to this, and because we had a very serious problem as companies, when we wanted to hire, or when we want to hire someone to be in charge of the integrated management of all the intangibles, which means being able of running communications, brand, CSR, as well as metrics, we do have a problem because the headhunters, their answer is always the same. We can't find that kind of, that profile. So we started doing something which is quite unusual from a client perspective. We started training. And we launched, it was 6 years ago, and I'm very happy to see that we have someone who did the course in the past. We launched a specific course to develop this idea of having what we can call a super chief communication officer, able to manage both sides, the outputs, the outtakes, and the outcomes. So we started 6 years ago, and we're very proud because now we have about 97 alumni who has done this fantastic course. It's called Chief Communication Officer, the Strategic Management of Intangibles. So that's our legacy, if you want. More questions? Yes?
No, from Acceso, only say that the way we're going to support this is we are going to keep our support to Amec, to support the chapter in Latin America, Fundacom, every corporate excellence, every entity that can help to the education in Latin America, Spain, in any region we're interested, we are going to support it, as we are now.
Good. If you want to support it more, better, but good.
This one is a very big support for the moment.
Sebastián.
Yeah, thanks Ángel for speaking about Fundacom. Fundacom is a foundation that includes more than 50 Ibero-American associations and 7,000 professionals. That is a huge opportunity to share knowledge and to share different initiatives. But the question is, what percentage of your clients came from marketing department, and what percentage came from PR department? And do you think it's a trend that the companies work together, the marketing as well as communication, in order to ask jobs related with measurement area? Or do you think it's a trend? And is it possible to compare with the European situation? I mean, is the department, the marketing department and the PR department working together in the measurement area?
Question is for me? Yes. Yeah, okay. In Spain, we work for more or less 5% of our clients are marketing, only 5%. But those 5% are very big companies. You know, we used to work only with the communication, and they start some merging or some kind of collaboration together. In Latin America, it's almost 100% of our work. It's in marketing. So in terms of the company, if you merge that, it's like 35% of our clients are from marketing.
For us, it's a little bit different. I think 100% of our business is on the PR and on the communication side of it. That doesn't mean that how we see the future is that the marketing part of our measurement it should increase in a significant way in the next couple of years. What we have found with when we sit down with our customers is that this is still they're not married, to put it that way. They are like separate efforts in most of the cases. And actually, when we sit down, the PR guy and the communication sometimes see it and he say, "Hey, you got to sit down with the marketing guys." But we have never had a meeting where marketing guys and communication guys are together, and so we can explain and try to study that. So I think in Latin America, it's that division is going to be there still for quite a few years. But we're hoping to get into the marketing area in the near future.
Yeah, actually, in our case, the Latin American experience is just like Carlos. I would say close to 100% of our clients in Latam, the ones that are inside Latin America, are the PR departments, and I see the same as Carlos mentions. They're completely separated entities. However, we do have a big chunk of our client base that is based overseas, and not the European clients, but about 20% of the US clients are marketing departments. And that's something very different, but I see it more as a trend that's coming, like Carlos says, where they still haven't gotten together in the room in Latam. So the PR and marketing guys, they haven't sat together and understood that they're actually talking about the same business outcome, which is either better reputation to drive sales, better reputation to drive customer engagement, etc. They all go together. But once they see it the way the rest of the world is seeing it, more or less, slowly, but it is, I believe, as Carlos said, that we will have those meetings where we sit with both of them and we try to, and probably we sit with them and in front of us there's another agency that does market research that will integrate it with what we do, which is the case sometimes, and that will satisfy both sides of the equation.
More questions, please?
Well, if we have a minute, as there are no more questions, we do have a couple of minutes still. There was something very interesting. I wanted to get the panel's opinion. So when we asked everyone who was being surveyed about, what's the average they spend on evaluation out of their PR budget, right? Most of them said less than the Europeans usually say, but it was around 10%. Except for one type of client, the political client. Now, for politicians, it was merely 4%. 4% of their spend is on evaluation. Why do you think politicians spend much less on evaluating their PR campaigns internally?
I think it's a matter that they prefer to spend the money in publicity.
But we're talking just PR budget.
But yeah, probably there is not enough PR budget. So at least in the political campaigns, what we have seen is that first of all, they happen in a very short term of space, and they try to spend the money is more in publicity, and probably they are not that aware of the necessity of doing the specific measurement of their PR campaigns. We have done, and I think in a successful way for some political campaigns, the measurement, and that we can see the specific results that has come from actions that have been taken because of the data that we have gathered and analyzed. But in general, we have sit down with, probably all of the political parties in Colombia and many of the candidates, but it has been very difficult for us to convince them to spend money in the measurement of the PR campaigns. They usually spend their monies in publicity.
Yeah, in our experience, that is Spain and Colombia in terms of political, I think the time scale is a really important matter because they need data now. And they need the data right now today because one thing, one news or one event can change the political from this to this. So measurement maybe in our context, in our social context, is not needed, is not that needed in the PR departments in political. But I think it's changing with social media. Social media is demanding for them more data, more measurement, and more understanding of the citizen. That they are used to get that data from other departments in governments because the governments used to have their own research institute, and they get the data about from the citizens from there. So this is changing because now politicals are more interested in the citizen research, but from social media, at least in Spain and Latam. But we saw what the UK government did, and this is very different for our territories.
Let me say something different about the consequences of that. The consequences of that, if you take into account the Edelman Trust Barometer, which is a measurement of trust conducted in the last 11 years, when it comes to ask citizens all around the world who they trust, politicians are at the bottom. So one of the consequences of not investing in measurement, which means listening to the expectations that the citizens have about politicians, one of the consequences is that they rank at the bottom of trust all over the world.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I get it. We completely agree, Ángel.
So, if you don't have any more questions,
We thank you all.
thank you very much indeed. We finished on time. So now, I don't know what.
We
There's
were
a
the last
party or
panel.
something
Please-
else.
Please
So let's
enjoy.
go.
We can watch the second half.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And please enjoy the awards tonight. Don't miss them.
Thank you.
Thank you.